So I say one significant figure. I had a student once. Oh, I know why I do it. He was a carpenter. And he said you're supposed to cut these pieces of wood to the nearest eighth of an inch. That's 0.125, so that's 3 significant figures. I said, no, it's not. 0.125 is not what you measure. You measure 1/8. And if you have a tape, you might be a little bit this way, a little bit this way, but not 1/1000th of an inch. I mean, you'll be more than 1/1000th inch. So there you go. 3 significant figures. That's the. Here's another 3 significant figures. So on the average, how many significant figures in these numbers that you use, that you know about, that you practice every day or twice a day, some days, or once a week, whatever? What's the average number of significant figures in this sheet of data? 2. So guess how many significant figures I like to see? 1 or 2. 1 will make me happy at some days. 2 will make me happy at some days. 3 might make me happy if you can justify it. How do you justify significant figures? Ha! Isn't that an interesting question? Yes?
Isn't it the number of significant figures for whatever variable has the least number of significant figures in the calculations?
That's true if you do multiplying and dividing. If you add and subtracting, it's a little different rule. But let's say all of these numbers are in miles. Let's ignore the ones that say minutes and the one that says nothing. I meant to say miles. I should have said miles. And we average these. In your head, just average these. 30. If you average them, you could get 30.0 to 30.0179 or something like that, right? How do you decide where to stop significant figures when you average all these numbers?
The average sig figs.
Pardon?
Look at the average sig fig
Good answer, but I don't think so.
Standard deviation.
Who said standard deviation? Yes! You look at the standard deviation. And if the standard deviation is 0.5 miles, then you don't give the answer of the average any more significant figures than that first decimal place. If the standard deviation is 1, then the fractional part of it is meaningless. Excellent answer, Caleb. Where'd you learn that?
You lesson us.
So you've been around the block before, huh? So how many of you know how to get standard deviation? You? Only what? Did you two? Both of you? 2 people in this class know how to get standard deviation.
I know how to do the Excel function.
That's what I mean. Okay, how many know how to use Excel? If I say Excel, you know what I'm talking about, right? And there's something called STDEV. There's also STDEV A and B and C, and I don't know what all they do. In that survey, by the way, that I'm going to show you the results for next week, all of them, there was a question about how do you rate yourself in Excel. You remember that question? 0 to 10. Anybody above 9 in here? You're right where you're supposed to be. Anybody below?
It wasn't a 0 to 10. It was just 0 to 10.
It was just what?
It was just a mid-flip. It wasn't 0 to 10.
Okay. So it was like a word.
Yes.
We put on there they are the Nazi for Excel Nazi. Nobody said Nazi. What would Nazi be in an Excel? The person that was maybe I'm just using the word Nazi. All right. Stephanie, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
We're doing all right? not here today. They told me they weren't gonna be here, so guess what they get to have the privilege of seeing? And I've forgotten what his name is. Oh, you know, I got the camera set up so it's right here at the bottom. Isn't that interesting? Where was I? Oh, significant figures. Anybody know the rule about getting standard deviation? Sorry. Change words on you. I'm talking about standard deviation. Anybody know the rule about getting standard deviation? Like, when can you? Who said that? Caleb said that. Twice Caleb had the right answer this semester. Even this day. 29 measurements of something before the standard deviation is allowable according to statisticians. I'm not a statistician, but I obey their rules in that regard. If it's less than 29, what do you do? There's other, huh?
T-stat. A T-stat for the student?
Students take, yeah, good. You suppose that's in Excel?
Probably.
We'll find out. We'll find out. All right, where was I? All right, so we looked at survey responses and we answered one of your questions, right?
Sure.
About significant figures. And what are your other two questions? What about philosophy about teamwork? Might as well talk about that. I came to work here in the other century, and I didn't know a soul in engineering. Not my friends, nobody I'd ever seen or heard of before. So, is that the way to do teamwork, to work with somebody that you've never seen or heard of before? You're not friends? How many of you know Ron Goulet? He came to work here and he didn't know anybody. How many of you know Charles Knight? He came to work here, he didn't know, he knew Ed Foster. They were teaching together at another school. Came here at the same time. So there's an example. Let's ignore him, okay? Our dean. I'll think of his name in a minute. Sutton, yeah. Here's the first name. Will Sutton, yeah. Don't tell him I couldn't think of his name right off the bat, okay? He came here, he didn't know anybody. You worked at Roper? You get a job there because you knew somebody there, a friend, good friend? Huh? You worked with them now?
It was just a summer internship.
Oh, okay. Somebody said Austin. You knew somebody there? Got you a job?
No?
You working a team there? You said you did some teamwork there, right?
Yeah. I didn't know anybody there until I got hired, but yeah.
Guess what? Same thing here. Team assignments are, you might have noticed, alphabetical by first name. I figure that's as random as anything. There may be one exception. Is there an exception on that list? There might be one exception. Anyway. So, you're thrown together in this team and you're going to have assignments for the next 14 weeks. They're team assignments. And at the end of the semester, you'll have a course evaluation. And it says, I'd be rather work with my friends than my team. I'm sorry. You don't get what you want. You don't get to say who's on your team with you. All right, so what's the other question there?
Confidentiality.
Confidentiality. Inside this room, everything that happens is just between us, okay? Don't go out there and say, oh, Dr. Henry gave us chocolates. And don't go out there and say, oh, Dr. Henry didn't know the dean's name. Okay, nothing. Nothing.
What do we say if somebody asks who took the desks apart?
That's how it was when we got here.
Years ago, there was a newspaper article about a truck driver who had exited from the interstate and his truck turned over. And the police got there and newspaper people got there and they said, how'd this happen? He said, I don't know. Do you realize that's the best answer you can give to a policeman? I don't know how that. What was it? There's a computer down in the lab, much like this, and there's this kind of monitor here. And the monitor bracket is broken off. And the monitor is sort of sitting down on the table, leaning against the thing. You know who did it?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Can you believe that? That when it happened, nobody reported that to me? What do you think about that? Tony, you think?
It's just a milligan
Pardon?
It's just a milligan
Say it again.
Talon.
Tyler, okay. You go by Justin is your first name? You go by Justin. Oh, my. That's confusing. No, I can't change that, but I can change the name on the website. But, does that answer your question about confidentiality? What's said here stays. All right, there's some important stuff for week 13. Don't need to know it now. There's something here that's left over from last semester. Ignore that. Weekly assignment schedule. Written report schedule. Each of you is going to write a report this semester. Each of you. It's a team report. Every one of them is a team report that one person writes with input from your team. Presentation schedule. Dr. Henry's guidelines for good presentation. Is that of interest to you at all, what my guidelines are for a good presentation? Then you might click on that. In fact, not only are my guidelines there, but there are two other guidelines that I found on the web that are quite good. So I want you to do good. You know why? Because in your career as an engineer, if you give good presentations, you get more sales if you're in sales, or you get more promotions if you're interested in promotion, or you get your ideas accepted by the bosses. Anybody have any example of where they gave a good presentation and got fired? Nah, that doesn't happen. Anybody give an example of a bad presentation and they got promoted? That hardly ever happens. So I want you to practice in here where it's safe to make good presentations. How many of you are nervous about standing up in front and giving a presentation? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. It's less than half of you, so you lose. All right, that's a joke. So, we can look at the weekly assignment schedule. I think that's probably a good thing to do. And then there's grading things, evaluation. I'm going to evaluate you. Maybe you want to look at grading next, but I'm going to evaluate you on how well you do the experiments this semester. I'm going to evaluate you on the knowledge that you display in doing your experiment. I'm going to evaluate you on your analysis of the experiment. I'm going to evaluate you on the report that you turn in and on the presentation you give. Now, somewhere over in these things is we're going to do some modeling. We're going to do 5 experiments this semester. And we're going to do 5 sets of modeling this semester. That gives us 10 items to do. I guess, let me see, we have 14 weeks. Oh, the last week. Shall I tell you what happened the last week? We had a pizza party. And some of you did presentations while we're having pizza, but I'll buy you pizza. No more food in here all semester brought by me, unless I change my mind. until the last week. How come that's